Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the Tantalizing Tidbits Cruising Tips series. That was a mouthful of words. Part 2 of this is going to be continuing on with the Mediterranean. So we're going to be covering a bunch of general information of things that we learnt along the way of cruising the Mediterranean. And it's also quite retrospective now that we've been out and we've cruised through the Caribbean and the South Pacific as to what the Med really did have to offer, and we probably didn't realize at the time. So yeah, let's jump in. The next topic is anchoring versus the marinas in the Med. Now, the Med is extremely well set up with marinas, and often these marinas are bang in the heart of the town, in the city, have the resources. The anchoring is often that bay that's like a mile away, that's hard to get to, and is not direct. There's only a few locations where you were able to anchor in the heart of the cities, and mostly you had to be in the marinas. So it's definitely a balance between the marinas and the anchoring. And just starting out, we were really pushing to get remote. We really wanted to push and find those really cool little anchorages because we weren't too fussed about spending time in marinas. In retrospect, I guess we should have maybe taken more advantage of the marinas to be in the heart of the cities and to get that cultural experience that I've been talking about. But there are definitely quite a few great little anchorages around. One app we found super helpful was called Navily. It's an app on your phone, and it's basically just has anchorages all over the world where people basically drop pins and will tell you, the depth, the bottom type, prevailing winds or protection from winds, and they'll have reports, like just real-time reports and comments of people's experiences anchoring there. We found it super helpful because it's not always on the charts. It's actually quite hard to research anchorages unless you have all the pilot guides and whatnot. Also, it was really helpful just to get an idea of how to anchor in some of the cities and zones that you were allowed and weren't allowed. The marinas themselves can be expensive and can be cheap. We found marinas for as cheap as €8 a night, which was awesome. And then we found some marinas that were up to $350 a night in Ibiza. Generally, we found them to be around 40 to 80 euros a night, which is super helpful if you've got friends and family on the boat. I mean, you can definitely split that amongst the crew. You obviously get the water, the electricity, and you're not in a bit of a dodgy anchorage. As I said, these marinas are also in the heart of the city. They generally take out the prime real estate. So a good way that we started to manage it was to say like once a week or once a fortnight, we'd head into a marina for 2 nights, make the most of being in the city, have the water, have the electricity, do all that, and then head back out and explore the anchorages. And then, a week later, 2 weeks later, come back in, do the 2 nights in the marina, get back in the city. You can go out to the restaurants, go to the museums, go and do all that stuff, and then jump back on the boat and go and explore the more remote parts that you probably want to be cruising. So the marinas often get the convenience vote, but are expensive. In terms of the anchorages themselves, we actually found them quite tough. Again, being our first experience of trying to anchor in these places in comparison to, say, the Caribbean and the South Pacific, they're actually really deep and often quite rocky or weedy bottoms. So you definitely need good gear for anchoring around the Med. The first thing, make sure you got a good anchor. It took us a little while to work out how to use our Bruce type anchor, but now that we have, we're really happy with it. A lot of people had the Rockner anchors, the Mason anchors, which are obviously all going to work really, really well. But I would also make sure that you have at least 80 meters of chain because these anchorages are often really deep. We found it quite hard to find shallow anchorages, and when they were shallow, they were also generally pretty rocky. So make sure you've got at least 80 meters of chain because that'll really help you out in some of those anchorages. Also, make sure that you have a system like a good windlass or whatnot to get that chain back up. Because there was definitely a few times when our battery was really low and our windlass was really struggling to pull up that chain from, say, like 22 meters. The other thing we found super helpful was there's an app that you can get called Anchor with an exclamation mark, and basically you set this as an anchor alarm. You can set a radius of how far you are allowed to drift, and you can drop a pin when you've dropped your anchor, and assuming that you've connected it to the Wi-Fi and it's got a little location, like on our iPad, it's got the inbuilt GPS. So it didn't require internet or a SIM card or anything to work, but it definitely made us sleep easy knowing that we had an alarm that could go off if we drifted outside that area. Just helped a little with the anchor anxiety. We could also set that on our chart plotter, but it just used a lot more power to run all our nav gear overnight, so we opted against that and just went for it on the iPad. The other cool thing is that you can actually put a SIM card in, which is pretty cheap generally in the Med. You can put that on the iPad, leave it in the boat, and it'll send emails to you on your phone or whatnot if you do start drifting outside that zone. So if you were leaving your boat at anchor, you've got something on board that can say, hey, the boat's moving, if you see a squall or whatnot, and who knows, maybe you're able to call a friend if you've got a radio or something to check on your boat, or maybe you can whiz. So super helpful. The app's called Anchor. There's a bunch of other ones out there. I think it's called Anchor Watch and whatnot. But yeah, find one that works for you. Finally, make sure you have some equipment to go stern to. It's a really cool part of sailing in the Mediterranean, of being able to back up and go stern to in some of these really tight little anchorages. You'll find that a little bit more difficult when you're outside of the Med because it's not as deep. We haven't been able to go stern to here in the South Pacific. We did find a few little spots in the Caribbean where we could do it, but it's a really cool experience. I really recommend that you need probably 2 lengths of about 50 meters of rope at least to make it worthwhile, or to make it possible to go stern to. For those of you that aren't experienced with what stern to anchoring is, there's definitely a bunch of videos out there and information online how to do it. But to give you a little quick snapshot of it, you want to, if you've got like a rock wall or some kind of shelf here which has quite a deep drop off, basically you want to set your anchor out here, you want to be reversing back, and then you want to tie 2 ropes off your stern, and that'll hold you in place because you've got 2 stern lines off to the shore, and then you got your anchor holding out, and you'll just sit there perfectly. So it's really nice, calm, but you definitely need the length of rope to get out there to do that. I'd also recommend that you either take some chain or some kind of piping or cover for your rope, because you're often tying it to quite jagged rocks and you don't want that to chafe and break. So definitely try and just look after your lines. Next topic, boat work. Obviously, because this was our first boat, we just bought her and we were setting her up for long-term cruising, we had a lot of boat work to do. And it was a massive learning experience on how to do boat work, where to do boat work, and how often we should be doing it. We definitely found it best to try to do it in chunks of time. So we would just dedicate like 3 or 4 days to, alright, we're going to get all these boat jobs done and then we can go exploring. I personally found it a little bit hard trying to just do boat jobs on the go, because often it meant taking all your tools out, trying to start a job, don't have the right thing, going to the marine store, coming back, and before you knew it, you've wasted half a day to get one job done. It was definitely way better to just do chunks of time as you go. So let's say once a month you just spend 3 days of doing boat work. So start a list. Start a list of all those little jobs along the way that you need to do. Dedicate like 3, 4, 5 days to get those jobs done. You're going to spend like a good day or 2 just going around chandleries and shops trying to find all those little parts to start those jobs. So you may as well kill all the birds with all the stones and do it at the same time. Start also just preparing like a little shopping list as you go. Like if you see a little job like, oh, I need to fix that electrical connection, but I need the little thing. Then write that job down, and on the shopping list, write down the part you need, or the wire you need, or the electrical tape, or whatever it is. So the next time you walk in that chandlery, you've got all the parts and pieces that you need to buy. It also takes a little bit of time to get your head around a new place. It'll take you a few days to find out where the best chandlery is, who's the best value, where is the electrical guy, where is the rigging guy. Like, it takes a while to map out a place. So the expectation of just turning up and starting isn't going to happen. We fool ourselves all the time thinking that we're going to be able to just turn up and start getting stuff done, but it takes days to find the right people and places to do it. A lot little chunks of time to getting these things done. Let's just say like every 4 weeks you allot 5 days to get boat jobs done, or whatever it is. You might only need 2 days. Just whatever it is, allot some time. You also probably want to allot that time in a good place. So some good places that we found for boat work was, the first place we stopped was Corfu. It had a lot of great chandleries and resources and whatnot there. I'd only say it was quite expensive in retrospect to the rest of the Med. So Corfu was a great place if you're in that area. Where we started in Croatia, I would say there was quite limited supplies there and limited people to help out. So I wouldn't recommend Croatia to do a lot of boat work, but hey, you might find some hot spots like Split and whatnot where you can get it done. The next awesome spot was Malta. Some really good chandleries, really good people. I thought also a really good work ethic. We had a few people helping us with the fridge and whatnot. Turn up, charged us what was quoted, found the right places, did a really great job. Also a lot cheaper than Greece. I would say maybe 10% cheaper than Greece. Finally, the south of Spain, where we got the bulk of all our work done. We did our rigging and whatnot in Almerimar, was a really great spot for boat work. The marina was also like $8 a day or €8 a day. There was a bunch of people around. Also quite a good little community, restaurants, whatnot. So yeah, I can really recommend those destinations. As I said, I found Croatia expensive and probably a little under-resourced. I found Italy super expensive. I hear France was really good, and I also think Turkey is possibly really good, except we didn't go to France or Turkey. So there's some little spots, maybe when you're thinking about where you're going to cruise in the Med, maybe think about those destinations and add that little buffer time to get some boat work done. Obviously, everyone's going to have urgent things that must be done in the most inconvenient places. Just deal with it, get it done when you can, and try your best. But yeah, that list of boat jobs that aren't top priority, that don't stop you sailing, maybe just try and save them to a little chunk of time. Also, I didn't realize it at the time, but the European summer is a hard and expensive time to get stuff done. Everyone's super busy, they're also probably on holidays, and a lot of quotes that we got for stuff was going to be 40% cheaper in the winter. Because they've got more time to do it and less work. So if you can, maybe also try and shift some of those big projects to the end of the seasons or right before the seasons in the winter, because you'll definitely save a bunch of cash. Also, take advantage of being able to buy online. Now that we've been sailing in the Caribbean and the South Pacific, it is so much harder to get stuff posted here, and it's actually really expensive. Generally, it's more expensive than the item itself. Europe was a great place to be on eBays and buying online and whatnot. Get it shipped to the marina. They all do it. They all allow you to. So yeah, take advantage of buying online, get some good deals, and do the work yourself if you can. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed part 2 of our cruising tips series. Part 3 will also be continuing on with the Mediterranean, and then following that we're going to be doing the Atlantic crossing, the Caribbean, Panama, Galapagos, South Pacific, Pacific crossing. So get excited for those. Part 1 was also the Med, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Drop us a like, dislike if you weren't into it. Drop us a comment below if you've got any other information that could help me or the other cruisers out there, or you got any questions or queries. And jump on board to Patreon if you want to support the journey. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you later. Bye guys.